Hey everyone, and welcome. So I am 37 weeks pregnant. We made it this far. Thank the Lord. I feel so blessed. As some of you may know, this was a high-risk pregnancy for me, and there were a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows, hospital bed rest, and chances of preterm labor. And so I really wanted to just share my experience in hopes that it will help, other expecting mothers with the situation I went through, because I had no clue about any of the things I was experiencing. And so by making this video, I hope that it will help someone else out there, another expecting mother, because while I was going through it, all I can do was research other people's stories. And I found a wonderful community on Facebook, a Facebook group that helped me get through this journey. And so we are coming to the end, and I feel really good now. Like I said, it's been 9 months of a lot of anxiety, but at 37 weeks, I am happy to say that we just came from the doctor, and baby Sillah is looking good. He is growing healthy and strong, and I'm doing well now. So I feel comfortable sharing my story, and just getting us women knowledgeable about our bodies. So initially we found out I was pregnant. We did our first OB appointment where they do the ultrasound. Doctor sees you. Everything was looking fine, but my OB did refer me to a maternal fetal specialist at the time, because I have severe allergies. Like, my allergies are not seasonal, they are year round. So I had been doing immunotherapy. And so she recommended me to a maternal fetal specialist for that. So my first appointment with the maternal fetal specialist was probably about 11 weeks, I think. 11 weeks, couldn't have been 14. During that appointment, that is when I found out I had fibroids. Never knew I had fibroids, and I pride myself on going to the doctor and thinking I'm healthy and being healthy, staying active, eating and all that stuff, but I had fibroids. Okay, so now I'm like, what do we do from here? Like, I hear about people with fibroids, but now you're saying I have them. Well, what do we do? So they said because it was not bothering me, we don't bother it. And it was not affecting the baby at the time or anything like that. So they would just continue to check for growth scans. Okay, cool. So I leave there. And then for me, those first 3 months, that first trimester was okay. I did not have the vomiting. I had a lot of nausea, but once I ate something, I was fine. I was still working. We had just went back to school, but I was heavy. I was very heavy. I remember growing and thinking like, oh man, why do I feel so big? Why am I heavy? Why am I having trouble walking? But clearly that wasn't, I guess, a big issue. Again, just going through all the first time, pregnancy, woos and ahs, and having anxiety about, okay, is the baby okay? Is everything gonna be okay? And so we had our 19-week anatomy scan. And that is where they check, the growth of the baby and how the baby is doing. So this was with my maternal fetal specialist again. And during that 19-week anatomy scan, they did a transvaginal ultrasound. And that is where the doctor discovered and came in and told me that I had a short cervix. My cervix at the time was measuring below a centimeter. So essentially there was almost no cervix. And with that, I was high risk for having preterm labor and possibly a miscarriage. So they suggested I have an emergency cerclage. So, dun 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 dun, here begins my journey. So I'm like, okay, well, wait, you want me to go into the hospital like right now? So like they wanted me to leave the doctor's office and go straight into the hospital to be admitted to have this procedure done. So what is a cerclage? Well, a cerclage is essentially a stitch to stitch together your cervix, to prevent it from shortening anymore, and to, help the baby bake and stay in a little bit longer. And so I'm just like, wait, surgery, procedure. I gotta go to the hospital. You know, it was Mother's Day weekend, and I was planning a nice gender reveal. I was gonna have a Mother's Day brunch gender reveal. My parents flew in from New York, so I was all excited for this. And that that morning, as I'm in the doctor's office and they're telling me I have to go into the hospital to get this done, it was just like my mind was spinning. But I'm like, okay, you know, I'm calm. I'm like, let me just do my research. I called my cousin, you know, who's an OB, and she, you know, gave me her advice and suggestions. So I was supposed to go straight into the hospital, like walk next door, but I went home. I went home and to meet my parents because they were just coming from the airport. So I went home and my parents were at the house and I greeted them and was like, hey guys, you gotta take me to the hospital. And I explained to them the situation. At the time, my husband was working on set, so he was unable to come. But I had my parents there, so we went to the hospital. I went home, I showered. I'm like, well, I'm gonna get myself together. And the hospital is calling me, the nurse practitioner is like, where are you supposed to be in the hospital now? And I'm like, oh, I'm on my way, I'm coming. So they were like, okay, like, what is she doing? Like, but I was determined to like, okay, let me just get myself situated before I go in here because I don't know what's about to happen. I don't know what to expect. So my mom comes to the hospital with me. Now, at the time, this is COVID, right? So this is in May, and you can only allow one person in the hospital with you. Whoever that one person was that signed in with you was the only person that can stay, that can come and go the entire time. So, you know, I selected my mom to come in there with me, instead of, you know, waiting for my husband who potentially, you know, have to go back to work and set and stuff like that. So I got admitted. I got admitted probably like on a Wednesday or something like that. They started me on IV drip, giving me antibiotics as a pre-treatment because they was about to invasively go into my cervix. So the next day I went into day surgery, and this is where they began the procedure. Now, I believe I had a spinal tap, and they gave me a spinal tap and they gave me something in the IV, and I went to sleep, knocked out. Don't remember anything but waking up and saying, oh, it's over, it's done. And they were like, yeah, it was only like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. I'm like, oh, wow. Now I was numb, so I didn't feel anything from the waist down, like toes couldn't move. I was like, what is happening, you know? But again, this is my first time having any type of surgery or procedure done. I'm by myself in the hospital, but I just prayed. I knew God was with me and that there were, you know, prayers. Everyone was praying for us. So I was really calm. I was calm. I've been preparing myself for this. So I had to stay in the hospital. They told me initially 2 days, but then I had to stay another day. And then that's when I started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what do you mean I have to stay another day? Like, I don't want to be in this hospital. I haven't seen my husband in 3 days. Like, it was just, I was just like, no, this is not happening. I want to go home. And again, I'm supposed to have this gender reveal on this Saturday. So clearly, it was like, okay, we have to cancel that. I can't do this gender reveal party or anything. And I had to now be out of work. I had to start my maternity leave early and go on modified bed rest. So there was just a lot that was happening so fast, and it was just like, okay, let's make these decisions. Again, thankfully, you know, I have a wonderful support system who was there to help me through it. So I got over myself, stopped the crying. I was like, okay, can't do the gender reveal, not going to the studio. All right, fine. So eventually they allowed me to come home. I came home Saturday evening. So I spent 3 nights in the hospital, 3 nights, 4 days, came home Saturday evening. And Sunday, my parents and my husband, they were able to set up a little gender reveal here at the house because I was determined to know the sex of this baby. I was like, nope, I'm not waiting another day, another week. I need to know now. And so you'll see that. I'll insert a clip or make another video so you guys can see the gender reveal. But so that happened on a Sunday, and I was on bed rest. Now they said I could stay home, had to stay out of work, but now I was on modified bed rest. Now, what does that mean? I can move. Clearly, I get up, go to the bathroom and stuff, but they didn't want me to do too much moving around. No heavy lifting, you know. I'm not like going to shop and walk around the grocery store or anything like that. Now, this is what was recommended from my doctors. I know after research and speaking to other women, some were never put on bed rest, but I was. Again, my cervix at the time was measuring less than a centimeter. So then from there, I had to have weekly doctor's visits. And so it was my second visit where they discovered that I was funneling through the stitch. Now, what does that mean is that, okay, my cervix, so you have the stitch around the cervix, but now the cervix is coming down through the stitch in between. And so essentially it wasn't holding tight enough. So, like I said, that was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the initial stitch. And so I'm in the hospital. I'm actually in the doctor's office now. My husband's sitting outside in the car, and I'm like calling him like, hey, they said that I gotta go to the hospital. So come upstairs because they're about to wheel me on over to do another cerclage. So that was me going into the hospital again for the second time now. Literally, I'm in the doctor's office and they're like, okay, go on over to the hospital. We're going to get you prepped to do, to remove that stitch and do another cerclage. So again, same thing, prep me with IV, antibiotic treatment. The next day I go into day surgery. And now this time I was awake, and that kind of made me nervous. When they rolled me into the room, I was expecting that kind of same thing and to be knocked out, but I think they may have just gave me an epidural that like numbed me, but I was totally awake. And at that time I was hungry too because I hadn't eaten in 24 hours. So I remember just talking to all the doctors and nurses. I'm just getting everyone's name, asking them what they're having for lunch. And this was kind of my nerves, you know, too, but me talking through it. So I remember the doctor starting and I'm saying, I can feel that. I can feel that. And I was nervous because I'm thinking like, okay, hey, like, when are y'all gonna knock me out? Like this, I was asleep before and now I'm totally awake and feel everything. Now, I didn't feel pain. It wasn't a pain, but it was pressure. It was a lot of pressure that I'm like, okay, I can feel what's happening. I know something's going on down there. But it wasn't pain. It wasn't unbearable pain. It just made me nervous, the fact that I'm up and this is happening. So again, I'm just talking to all the nurses, just trying to get through this and get my mind off of what's happening down there behind these sheets. And so got through that. Again, that was all about 20 minutes. The doctor removed the previous stitch on my cervix and placed another one higher and tighter this time. And so put me back into recovery. And so now I have to let the drugs wear off before I can walk or feel my legs or anything like that. And so now that stay, I think, was just about 2 days, but once the drugs wore off, I actually felt more cramping than I did with the first one. And that's how I could tell it was more tight. So that recovery was a little bit more discomfort with the cramping and everything like that. And then I got to go home. Again, had to be put on bed rest, you know, no heavy lifting, don't do all this invasive walking around and up and down and things like that, just rest. And so my mom came back. Actually, she flew back to New York and she came back to take care of me. And she was bringing me my breakfast, lunch, and dinner up and down the stairs. Oh, God bless her heart. My husband was just working around the clock at this time, and then he will come home and take care of me. And then my mother-in-law, she flew in from Sierra Leone and stayed with me for about a week, and she too was helping me with meals and bringing me food. So I really, really, truly was grateful to have a wonderful support system to get me through that first month of bed rest. And so moving forward, now I had 2 cerclages, right? 2 procedures. And so again, I have to go back weekly and they go back in transvaginal ultrasound and check to see the length of my cervix to see if the stitch is holding up and stuff like that. So, initially the first week, oh, okay, we got some length, it's going good. Second week, it's going good. At my 24-week appointment, me and my husband sat down and said, okay, we have to make it to viability, which is 24 weeks. They gave me milestones. 24 weeks and 28 weeks is when, if I was to go into preterm labor, the baby has a higher chance of survival. So we were waiting for this 24 weeks, waiting for this 24 week appointment. I got dressed up. I was like, okay, let's take a picture. I was like, we're going to make this a whole moment. We made it to 24 weeks. Thank God. Okay. And so I remember that day, I just kept feeling this cramping, I guess. Maybe it was a Braxton Hicks at the time. I had no idea what it was, but it was a weird feeling. So anyway, went to the doctor's appointment, go in, they do ultrasound, check me again transvaginally. And so by this time I know the routine. I'm like, okay, if I'm sitting here long enough, then that means that the doctor needs to come in and see me. And when the doctor comes in to see me, they got news. If the doctor doesn't come in and it's just nurse practitioner, I can go home. Well, doctor walks in. And now by this time, my husband, he was actually allowed to come into the doctor's office. Again, this was COVID, and so at COVID, they were not allowing him to come into the doctor's office at all. He would have to drop me off and sit in the car and wait. So he's actually in the room with me now. And the doctor comes in and she lets me know that my cervix is still shortening. It's still shortening and funneling, and so that they want to admit me to the hospital for hospital bed rest. Today, like right now, you're going to leave this doctor's office and we're going to wheel you over. We're actually going to call a wheelchair to wheel you over into the hospital, and we want to monitor you for the next few weeks for preterm labor. And this is, again, all this is them, just trying to prevent me from going into any preterm labor, or if I do go into preterm labor, they can react quickly. If the baby was to be born anywhere between that 24, 28 week time period, I will be in the hospital where they would have, they will have a chance of survival rate being right there in the NICU. So again, I almost expected it at this point. I was just like, come on, like I just keep going back to the hospital. What else y'all gotta tell me? So I wasn't mad. I didn't cry. It was just like, all right, this is what we gotta do. Let's do it. Like I felt actually comfortable and safe knowing that all these precautions and measures were being taken place and my situation was being taken seriously. Like I did not want to go home and me being me, overwork myself or think that I can do more than I can and risk going into preterm labor or anything, putting the baby at risk. So I was like, go on, take me into the hospital. Go on, here we go. So at 24 weeks, I began my hospital bed rest journey. And was that an experience, boy? I was in the hospital from 24 weeks until 32 weeks. So that's 8 weeks. I spent all of June, all of July, in the hospital, just sitting there in the bed, going back and forth from the bed to the bathroom, bed to the bathroom. Some days I would sit on the couch if I can. But yeah, no visitors because again, it was COVID. And so only my husband, because he came in with me. He was the only one allowed to come in and out, bring me things, send things to me. I ate so much Uber Eats and DoorDash after a while because I got tired of the hospital food. I mean, I'll do a whole video on how to survive hospital bed rest. But yeah, I was in there for 2 months, and it was a mental challenge. It was a mental challenge, and again, I'll do a whole separate video on how to get through that. But it was a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation. But I was essentially by myself. Just me and baby, every day, every night, just us, and trying to just keep my mind focused on the milestone. I'm like, okay, let me get to 28 weeks. Let me get to 28 weeks and maybe they'll let me go home. They said that's when they'll do another check. Well, as I was approaching 27 weeks, I started to have contractions. and those contractions were coming like 2 minutes apart. And so they sent me immediately downstairs to labor and delivery and began to give me um, magnesium. I think it was the magnesium, not the steroid shot. Um, I had so many drugs at one point I couldn't even keep up. But yeah, so they began to administer magnesium. That's what it was. At 24 weeks, when I was first admitted, they gave me the steroid shot. Yes. And so at 20, going on 27 weeks, when I started to have those contractions and they sent me back down to labor and delivery from the high risk unit, I was then given magnesium. And this is all to help develop these drugs, steroids, and magnesium is to help develop babies' brains and lungs if they were to go into any type of preterm labor. And at that time, they were thinking like, okay, yeah, she might be going into labor. And so, yeah, I was down there for like maybe 3 or 4 days with these contractions on and off, coming and going, but I never dilated. I never dilated. Um, and so my maternal fetal specialist came in and they ruled it out that it was irritable uterus because of my fibroids. As I was describing the pain and the tightening, it was my fibroids that was possibly irritating my uterus. And then they mentioned something called fibroid degeneration. Let me just say, those contractions, yes, those contractions were hurting. They weren't like, oh, no, it was hurting. I was in pain for about 7 days. They would give me, pain relief medication. But after a while, I had stopped. I think by like the 4th day or 5th day, I had like stopped. I was like, no, don't give me any more because it will make me drowsy. Yes, the pain will go away for a little while, but then it will come back later on when I wake up. It will make me drowsy, baby drowsy, and I was just over it at that point. I was completely over it. Like I could barely walk. They had to put a bedside commode, because I was like, I can't walk to the bathroom anymore. It was just that painful, and my husband was there to help me through it. They say like if pregnancy does not bring you and your partner closer together, he has seen things come out of my body and had to help me literally wipe because I could not do anything. I mean, yeah, it was excruciating. So I say it was a total of 10 days before I felt normal again and there was no more contractions happening. Um, yeah, that was a long, long road. And again, from being down in labor and delivery for about 4 days, and I begged to go back upstairs to the high risk unit. And then when I got up there, I was contracting again, and they were nervous, thinking they had to send me back down. I was like, no, 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 no. Like I knew I was not about to have this baby, but they wanted to, like if anything happened, I had to be down in labor and delivery. But all the nurses thought I was about to give birth, and nope, did not. We made it. We made it to 28 weeks. And at 28 weeks, I had my hopes up thinking they was going to send me home, but I knew they weren't because of that whole episode, that contraction episode that I had. So they kept me longer. They kept me longer into 32 weeks. Now, mind you, the whole time I'm in there, these 8 weeks, I am being monitored twice a day, morning and night. It started with just 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night, and this was during a shift change. And then after I had the whole fibroid, irritable uterus thing going on with the contractions, it started being an hour. So I would now have to be on the monitor for an hour. And if this baby was kicking like he would do, get off the monitor, they would have to keep it on longer. So that was two times a day, every single day. I was tired of being monitored. I appreciated it, but it was just like at this point, it got to the point where I was literally like, just give it to me. Let me find it. Here he is. If he will move, then I would just move it. Like, oh my goodness, it became so annoying. But we made it to 32 weeks and they discharged us and released us. And it was just like, I was just so happy. Like, I was determined to just get home. I was like, listen, y'all don't have to worry about me trying to go anywhere or do anything because I could barely walk as it is. Y'all kept me in this hospital bed going from here to literally right here. So my muscles are gone and shot, and I was just happy to be home. And so, yeah. So from 32 weeks until now, we made it 37 weeks. I've had weekly appointments and weekly visits, and I got the stitch taken out. So at 37 weeks, just 2 days ago, they took the stitch out. And so we are clear and safe for delivery. Whenever he's ready to come, we can do it. Now, about that stitch being taken out, that was a whole nother episode, but it only lasted like 10 minutes. It was done in office, so I did not have to go back to the hospital. I just did it in the maternal fetal specialist office. And what she found the stitch very clearly, but I had funneled through it. I was having those contractions against the stitch. So my cervix essentially was growing through the stitch now. And so it took her a lot more pressure and force to cut around it. Yeah, there was like blood and stuff. And they're like, oh, you're doing good. You're doing good. And I'm over here like sweating on the table. I'm breathing. I'm like, oh, this, it was not comfortable at all. Now, some women, they're just like, oh, it's taken out 1, 2, 3. Of course. Come on, this is a Sillah baby. It's going to be extra stuff happening. So I'm just now laying there like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. I'm trying to practice my Lamaze breathing and techniques to just get through this. And so got through it. It's out. And we free and clear to go on and go into labor. And so, yeah, I know that was a lot. That was a mouthful. And it's probably stuff that I'm missing along the way, but like I said, I really wanted to just share my experience in hopes that it will help someone else who may possibly have a short cervix. And it's called incompetent cervix. Like I looked at my medical documents and I was like, what is incompetent cervix? And I'm like, oh, okay. Why does it happen? Why did it happen? I don't know, but I just know that everyone's prayers, wishes, and my God's promise that he will bring forth a healthy baby to me. I know his word is true and it has been fulfilled. So I just feel blessed to make it this far. And I'm going to post more videos to talk about just my hospital bed rest, about just knowing, asking questions to your doctors, your GYN, and yeah, all those tips to hopefully help those other women that may potentially have an incompetent cervix. And if you have questions and comments, go ahead, leave a comment below, and hopefully he'll be here soon because I'm ready. Let's go ahead and show you this big old belly. Woo, yeah. So we ready to pop. Baby Adonis will be here soon. So yeah, thank you for those of you who listened to this whole video. Thank you. I hope that you learned something from it, and stay tuned for the next update.